Yeah.
It wouldn't let me in I was logged in as my personal account and it wouldn't let me. Sorry about that.
Oh,
I
yeah.
should have paid
We
attention
got
to small
to
details.
get ready on that. Actually, I'll do introductions. It's noon. We'll do a quick intro and then we can get started. So
Cool.
for those of you joining us for the first time, either live or watching the recording, this is Ntiva Live, Apple for Business. I'm Ben Greiner, Director of Apple Technology at Ntiva. With me, as always, is Chad Calise, our cyber resilience lead. And today we have a special guest, Thomas Reed from Malwarebytes. And
Hi, Thomas.
Hello, Thomas. Yes.
Hey.
Thomas is
nice to be here.
Thomas is the director of Mac and mobile at Malwarebytes and has been for, I believe, 6 years, right, Thomas?
Yep.
Yes.
Going on 6. Very, very close now.
Okay, great. So I want to get right into Malwarebytes and just a quick intro here. We typically talk about things that are happening in Apple technology that are relevant, but we knew you were coming on the show, so we want to dedicate as much time as possible to you. I just want to mention yesterday, my AirPod Pros started acting wonky. I've not been able to fix them. I need to get this off my chest, so I got to share it with everyone.
Flaking out on you.
They've worked flawlessly since I got them. And yesterday they started flipping between left, right, and they just won't stop, left, right. And everything I've read says, well, reset them, which I've done, or make sure they're clean, which I have thoroughly cleaned them and cannot find what would be causing the issue. But if anyone has any ideas on how to stop your AirPod Pros from flipping between left and right, other than a hard reset, which I've already tried, let me know.
And you're not plugged into a mixer? You're not doing a Reggie Watts or anything?
No. Maybe my neighbors hacked me and they're messing with me. I don't know. But so Thomas, thanks for coming on and joining us.
Thank you.
Just a little bit of background for us. I would say I've been in the business, much like all of us here, for at least 20 years. And back in the day, Norton was the only thing I think we had access to as Mac people. And frankly, it was more of an annoyance than anything, Norton antivirus. And I feel like we finally got to a point over the course of like the 2000s where people kind of stopped running that stuff on the Mac. For better or for worse, people stopped doing anything on the Mac.
It's true. Yeah.
Yeah. And then we started to see the landscape change. And, I always struggle, Chad and I talk about this a lot, you want to be innovative and in the forefront, but not bleeding edge so that you're causing issues, right? And you also don't want to be so far behind that you're standing there flat-footed saying, what am I doing? So we're always trying to find that balance of being innovative, but we want everything to work. And we decided we needed a few years ago, actually, that we needed to start exploring endpoint protection for the Mac. And once again,
it wasn't a popular opinion. It still wasn't popular. It's still not. Really. There's a lot of people that are still kind of flat earthers. It's tough to shift that perspective.
And we did a lot of testing, and there's a lot of, well, this looks like it'll work. Let's try it. Oh, this looks like it works. But then later it was causing us issues, whether it was issues that high CPU usage, unexpected, blocking of things. It was basically a drain on our support desk rather than a benefit to our clients, and and a frustration for our clients. So we kept looking, and we ended up with Malwarebytes. And I think a big reason for that is, Malwarebytes seems to be one of the few pieces on the Apple in the antivirus, anti-Malwarebytes ecosystem that was built specifically for Mac. And I think that's where you come in. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah, it's a great story.
Yeah.
You should tell that story, Thomas. Tell how about the Secure Mac, and maybe, if you don't mind, because I've never heard it from your perspective either.
Yeah, no problem. So, gosh, it's been a long time now. It's probably been at least 10 or 11 years ago that I started the Safe Mac. And initially, it was just a series of blog posts, right? And things. Yeah, it was a blog about security issues.
Sorry, I think I said Secure Mac. Sorry about that.
That's okay. And over time, I started noticing that there was this growing problem of adware. There were people getting infected with adware just left and right. And so I started writing guides on the Safe Mac about, how to remove this adware, how to remove that adware, how to figure out what adware you had. And that worked for a while. But these adware guys are kind of sneaky. They like doing nasty things, renaming files, that sort of thing. And it started getting harder and harder to write the instructions. And at the same time, there was this one particular kind called Genio that was, at the time, it was making a change that if you deleted a particular file that was associated with the malware, that your system became unbootable, which was a problem, and so I went through a whole series of iterations of the instructions on how to safely delete this file, with like big red text saying, don't do this unless you do this first. And people were still, writing me angry emails. I followed your instructions and my system won't boot anymore. And, so but at that point, I really was starting
to realize. Did they really follow the instructions, Thomas?
No.
I'm guessing not. Yeah.
No. I did learn a lot about how to write clear instructions, but yes. I also found that no matter how clearly you write them, somebody's going to misinterpret them. So
yeah. Yes, we know that from running a support desk. Yes.
That's why so many great thinkers, Aristotle, I don't know, even, Jesus, a lot of these guys never wrote anything down, probably because they knew it was going to get misinterpreted. At least when you're talking, you've got a fighting chance.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so because of that, I started seeing that there was a need for some kind of a tool to help people do this removal. And so my first attempt was just a simple AppleScript applet, and everything was kind of hard coded in there. But like I said, the adware was getting a little more sophisticated. It was using a lot of different names, random names, that sort of thing. And so the script was getting longer and longer and more unwieldy. And so finally I wrote Adware Medic, which was, kind of sort of like antivirus software, except it was specifically targeting adware. And that really worked, and it really took off. And so the next thing I know, Malwarebytes is calling and saying, hey, we like your software. Apparently a board member on the Malwarebytes board had a relative who got infected with malware on their Mac, and he downloaded Adware Medic, and next thing, he was calling the CEO saying, hey, check this out. So long story short, I ended up at Malwarebytes and have been there for almost 6 years now.
And what were you doing? But when you were doing your security posting, were you also consulting at the time, or were you working somewhere else? Or?
I was doing a little bit of consulting here and there, but mostly I was a stay-at-home dad at the time. So my youngest son was pretty little at the time. My wife works full-time, and I've done stay-at-home dad before. And so I was like, well, I've got nothing really compelling going on right now. So I'm just going to, take this on. And then when he was, in school, in preschool or something, that gave me plenty of time to work on other projects.
Yeah. So, well, how did you get involved or interested in this? Like, what was there, did you study it at some point, or what, like going back
I have absolutely no formal training in security. I really, it's a funny story. The way that I got into security, I was very active on Apple's forums and have been for many years. I've had less time for it lately, but I was very, very active there. And I used to be one of the people who would tell people, oh no, you don't have to worry about malware. Macs don't get malware. And because I believed that was true, I knew that there were plenty of viruses back in the pre-OS 10 days. But at that time, I believed all that malware had been wiped out by the upgrade to OS 10, and that, we were all good. Well, finally somebody asked me some questions that I couldn't answer. And in the search for answers, I actually learned about all the new malware that had appeared since OS 10 had come out. And so that really intrigued me, and it got me looking even deeper. And next thing you know, it was like, like a black hole. It just sucked me in, and I was hooked.
Well, it's interesting that you don't have any formal training in security, and I'm the same way. And Chad, would you say you have formal training? I mean,
no, it's very similar. And Thomas, when you and I met in LA at MacTech, is it like a few years ago now?
Yeah.
That was one of the first things we had in common was, we ended up, we both have these meandering kind of paths to what we were doing. And we were both really just trying to help a larger community.
Yep.
In Thomas's case, that's true. In my case, that was true because I had some friends who had lost about almost 5 million of their liquid assets. Ooh. To identity theft in 2007, like early 2007. And they reached out to me because I was their most technical pal. And I had heard of ID theft, but I had no personal experience with it. And we certainly weren't talking about it. We weren't doing anything to elevate each other's mindset about it. And that's, my initial efforts and foray. I think I'd always been a hacker type. It never occurred to me to call myself that. It never seemed an attractive title. I always tried to downplay that kind of side of my abilities and stuff, just to be able to relate to people. And that was a left turn for me because now I had, it was personal.
Yeah. Yep. Well, at the risk of irritating everyone who is formally trained in security, I'll mention that, Chad and I often say, don't bring a tank to a knife fight. And one of my frustrations with before Chad and I met, trying to get professional security people involved in the Mac side is that they would bring an army of tanks to a knife fight. And I would just be like, guys, this is going to hurt the user sitting in front of the computer. They're not going to be able to get their job done. No one's going to like this. This isn't going to work. Are there any options? And it was always very black and white for them. There weren't really any options. And I think that's what I also like about Malwarebytes. Like, this stuff has to work in the real world. You can't just tell me it's bulletproof, it's going to protect you, but it's not going to let you get your job done either. I mean, that doesn't work. So I don't know what kind of discussions, like now that you're sort of inside that world, Thomas, working at a company that is focused on protecting people. And by the way, I also, took me a while to come to those same conclusions. Like, I don't think, like, even Chad was telling me early on, oh, this is possible on the Mac. I'm like, what? No, I don't believe it. But the further down the sort of rabbit hole you go, you realize it is possible. And I would say every single time we roll out Malwarebytes to an organization, doesn't matter if they're the best organization or we know they're not doing best security practices, we will always find something that we did not know was living in that organization. And some of it is just annoying adware, but you don't know what that adware can turn into down the road. And the client doesn't even know how it got on there, which is, the scary part.
And I think it's important to mention too that, Thomas's focus on potentially unwanted programs, or PUPs as we call them, is important because it's a kind of a gateway drug. You might say adware is a gateway drug for worse things, right? So once you have some PUPs on your system, that just opens us up to greater risks, right? Because I've heard people, grumbles, and Thomas probably has too, that, PUPs are kind of testing grounds for what comes later. Right. And a lot of those tactics and strategies are appropriated by other groups to iterate on. And so it's important to not dismiss them as just nuisances, because they can lead to much worse things. And it's taken us some time. We're still working very hard to help, folks understand that this isn't going away.
Yeah. So Thomas, back to the question of, you're now inside a security company. You are, you're director of Mac and mobile at Malwarebytes. I mean, what was it like taking Adware Medic and making it work with Malwarebytes? And kind of a follow-up question, what do you what are you seeing today, or what are you
Yeah,
working on for the future?
yeah.
Three
So
questions.
it was really a very interesting experience to go from just, being one guy writing a piece of software to having a team of people working on software and managing that. It's a
That's
completely
cool.
different thing. I had a lot of learning to do about how that process works, and all on the job training, so to speak. Um, so yeah, at this point we've got a really great team. They're really writing some high quality code. And we're kind of on the second iteration of the engine. They rewrote it originally when I first came to the company. It was not written in, it was written in what's I don't even know how to pronounce it anymore. What is used to be called Real Basic. So it's a rapid application development environment.
Mm-hmm.
So it let me write the software really, really fast, which I really liked. So we rewrote it in Objective-C first, and now we're sort of in the process of getting a lot of the code converted into Swift.
Oh,
So,
good.
yeah.
That's not a small task.
So Swift is Apple's native programming language, right?
Yep.
So it's not currently in Swift, but the next iteration will be.
A lot of the UI and other things like that. The core engine, I think, is still mostly Objective-C.
Okay. So there's some Swift pieces in it today. Yeah. What are you seeing as far as, because I'm sure do you guys have access to the data? I would imagine you do, right?
We do, yeah. So we collect anonymized telemetry. So, we can see things like, we don't collect files themselves. I know a lot of antivirus programs, if they see a suspicious file, they'll collect it, but we're not doing that. But we do collect things like, where was the file found? What was it called? If it's a file, we collect a hash so that we can potentially find that file somewhere like on VirusTotal. A lot of our detections, though, are folders, because, if we're detecting an app is really a bundle. It's a folder that looks like a file.
It's true.
So we don't get hashes for folders. But, we do get all this metadata about the malware, what it was and where it was and that sort of thing. And we can look at that data and see, okay, well, we're not seeing a whole lot of this particular malware, but good Lord, we'll look at how much we're seeing of this other one. So as an example, we worked recently with the folks over at Red Canary on detection of Silver Sparrow.
Great.
And we got so much good data about that malware, and how widespread it was. That was a really great, great way to learn about it was from the data. And one of the neat examples there is, there was a payload that was downloaded by the malware, and we knew exactly where the malware saved that payload and what it called it. It had a static file name, so we knew exactly what and where it was. We have not seen one single instance of that payload across tens of thousands of machines that were infected. So that's kind of an interesting thing that we were able to learn by looking at the data, is that this appeared to be more of a past infection that's dead at this point. And it looked like most of the malware had actually self-removed. So very, very interesting. And then we'll see other things where we, I think Xcode Spy is one that was recently in the news. And we added, rules to detect that. And as of today, we still have not seen a single instance of that on any system with Malwarebytes installed. So, you never really know how big a threat a piece of malware is unless you can look at that data.
Right. So you're
Good
saying
point.
some of these things that are hitting the news, you're not actually
Mhm.
seeing in the wild in some cases.
Right, right.
Right.
And in some cases, we'll see an article about some new piece of malware, and typically it's something that maybe the researcher found through a hunt on VirusTotal. And
Mm-hmm.
so, who knows how that particular piece of malware might have gotten on VirusTotal. Maybe it's not even in the wild yet. Maybe it's
Mm-hmm.
still in development. And what
That's a really good point.
sometimes these malware developers will do is they'll take their early code and they'll upload it to VirusTotal to see if it gets detected by any heuristics engines.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so
Yeah,
that's the kind of thing you might find, and it's not actually out in the wild yet.
I do feel, and this is just a feeling, I have no data around it, but I do feel like the Apple platform is scrutinized at a much higher level than the Windows platform, which is kind of numb to this stuff, right? I mean, what is that fair
Uh,
to say in a
yeah,
way?
absolutely. On Windows, if you find a new piece of malware, uh, who cares? I mean, unless it's really, really
Sure.
interesting, like doing something that has never been seen before, or
Mm-hmm.
doing something, really groundbreaking. Who cares? I mean, yeah, you want to protect against it as a security researcher. You want to know about it, but the general public, they're like,
Mm-hmm.
care,
Mm-hmm.
just protect my Windows machine.
Yeah.
On the Mac, every piece of malware is interesting. Every piece is distinct and different. I shouldn't say every piece is interesting because some of them are not,
Mm-hmm.
but they are unique.
Yeah.
Each one is worthy of at least some kind of mention.
Mm-hmm.
Even the really poorly written ones, and those are interesting just because they're so poorly written.
Yeah. Yeah. Are there any that like have been really nasty in recent years? That come
Absolutely.
to mind.
Yeah. So probably the nastiest that I've seen recently is one called, we called it Thief Quest.
Mm-hmm.
We actually initially called it Evil Quest until we found out there was a video game by the same
Uh,
name. Oops.
yeah.
um,
That's
but
Do you guys get to name these when you find them? Is it
yeah, yeah.
okay?
Whatever researcher finds them gets to name them. I
Okay.
am notoriously bad at naming malware. But
But you found some that you've
but
named,
I've
and
yeah,
this is
I've
okay.
found some. And so this malware, initially it looked like ransomware because it was a little bit tricky to get it to actually trigger. It wasn't very reliable, but when it did trigger, it would start encrypting files in your home folder. It would leave a ransom note telling you, oh, you've been infected with ransomware. Um, and do all of these other very ransomware like things. But there were some suspicious aspects to it. So, first of all, the ransom note didn't give an email address.
Hmm.
So, you
So how
had
do you
no
pay the
way to
ransom? Yeah.
contact. Well, it did give a Bitcoin address. So, you could pay a
Mm,
ransom, but you couldn't contact anyone to get your decryption key.
mm,
And then it additionally, as it was being investigated, it was found that Bitcoin address it was the same across all infections,
mm,
and that's not typical. Typically, with ransomware, it'll be a unique Bitcoin address so that they can verify that machine is the one that paid,
mm,
on this account on this particular Bitcoin address. So there was no way for the folks on the back end to know who had paid,
mm,
much less for the people who paid to get in contact and get their decryption key. So it turned out that this thing was what in the Windows world is typically called a wiper. So all this ransom activity, all ransomware activity where it was encrypting files, that was just all smoke and mirrors. It was all a distraction to keep you from noticing that the whole time it was siphoning data off your system.
Mm,
and it was exfiltrating a huge amount of data.
I see. So it was like, hey, look over here, and while we steal stuff from the
Yep.
other side.
Yep.
Wow,
Exactly.
interesting.
Very, very like a magician's sleight of hand.
Yeah.
Very clever.
Yeah.
So, that's something. So obviously Macs can be infected with ransomware, right? I mean,
Yep.
this is something that I don't know. I don't know if people fully comprehend, despite the fact that we have said that repeatedly. It is technically
Not until it
possible, and
happens.
yeah.
And then we can have those conversations. But it's like you said, it's really easy to, hang on to the past and what we believed before. It's
Mm-hmm.
really challenging for us to shift our perspectives.
And Malwarebytes has both a paid version, which we use with our clients, and a free version, right? You still have a free version?
Absolutely.
And for anyone listening or wants to download it and try it on their machine, the only, I think, correct me, the only limitation is you just have to manually run it. Is that
right?
How it
Right.
works?
Yeah. The free version lets you do manual scans only, but you can do as many manual scans as you want. You can remove all the malware that you want. There's no limitation on it. So what you're really missing there is the scheduled scans and the real-time protection.
Yeah, and
what
the
a
reporting.
Nice transition. The reporting.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was going to say that's got to feel really great, Thomas, to have started out building this tool that was valuable to people right away, without any commitment, without any obligation, just some value you were transmitting into something larger than yourself. And to see that evolve into, I still, get, reports from pals and family members of pals who say, oh, I downloaded Malwarebytes and found all this stuff. And it's always Malwarebytes. And somehow that has translated into, this next part of your adventure with Malwarebytes. That's got to feel pretty great.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting, my story is very similar to the story of Marson, our CEO. Same thing, except on Windows. He actually in his case, he infected the family computer and went looking for solutions.
Yeah.
Realized how sucky the solutions were. Yeah.
For real.
And that's how the company started. So it's got this core value of really wanting to help people, and this belief that you don't charge for that, like just for removing the malware. We charge for prevention, but not for the remediation part.
Yeah. That's and I want to repeat something, or say it better, is why we chose Malwarebytes is not only how well it runs on the Mac, sort of the low overhead that it brings to the Mac, but it's very easy for us to centrally deploy to an organization very quickly, and it's also easy for us to remove when there are reasons for terminations or decommissioning a computer. And I can't say that for all the anti-malware out there. Some of those solutions are so difficult to remove, even when you're an administrator of a machine. So
it's friendly, even in training sessions, with folks, it's intuitive. It's much more compatible with a diverse audience, and I'm grateful for that. Pretty much every day.
So we have a couple comments. One is it was recommended that I return my AirPods. Thank you for that comment.
That's superb.
They might be beyond warranty, but maybe not. I need to check that. And then question: where can we find the download for Malwarebytes? And I assume, I haven't done this in a while, but I'm going to go Malwarebytes, bytes.com.
Yep.
And probably under personal. Is that maybe where?
Yeah. So, and if you're looking for the Mac solution, you just do malwarebytes.com/Mac.
Oh, okay.
And
do that. Malwarebytes.com/Mac.
Yep. But yeah, if you're just browsing, it would be under personal.
free download right here, malwarebytes.com/Mac, free download, and then pricing
It's
if you
great.
want to
And if you're
get either
concerned that you
personal or
have
business.
something, that's if you're concerned that maybe your Mac's running slow or it's doing things that are out of the ordinary, and you're not running any endpoint or anti-malware or antivirus or whatever you prefer to call it, this is a great starting point, just to get an idea of like if it is indeed a lot of these potentially unwanted programs, and clean that up.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like it runs for 14 days before it goes into manual mode.
Yeah, it gives you a little taste of the protection before going to just free mode. And a lot of folks will say, oh yeah, our antivirus program is bulletproof, it's perfect, it'll catch anything. That's just never true. So I always tell people, if you really do believe you're infected and you run Malwarebytes and it doesn't catch anything, contact our support. Maybe you do have something that we just don't know about yet, and we want to learn about it.
And I have noticed, and this is not unique to Malwarebytes, it's across all of these types of programs. Sometimes it can find it and fix it, remediate it. Other times you have to go in and do some extra steps because it's so embedded in there. You can't rip it out.
Yeah. Well, stuff like changing the browser settings or ripping out those nasty configuration profiles that lock your browser settings. Apple doesn't give you an API for pulling those out, so we can't do it. Stuff like that. Yeah, it's unfortunate, but there's some manual work needed to fix those settings.
Well, I know we're technically out of time, but I want to ask you one more question if you have time, Thomas, which is
absolutely
director of Mac. We understand that, and mobile.
Yes.
So what exactly does that mean in your world, mobile?
So that means that I'm also now directing the development of our mobile products as well as our Mac products.
Okay.
And so
would I see them online here?
I honestly, I think they're under personal. But
mobile.
Mobile. There you go. And so we have an Android app that's basically antivirus, and we have an iOS app, which of course is not, because that's not possible on iOS, but it does other security related things. And then we also have a VPN. A privacy app, and we've got that on Mac, and it's coming soon for iOS and Android. And so I'm watching over all of those things, and for my role, basically, knowing what the customer is looking for, and what we want to deliver. That's really the important part. And so I'm not really doing any development at this point. I'm just sort of directing, here's what we need to do next, and let the development team figure out the how to do it.
And iOS is a completely different beast compared to Mac OS. I mean, as far as the code base, and of course what Apple allows anyone to do on the device is both good and bad. I mean, it definitely keeps things out, but it also prevents clients or organizations like you from doing some things to protect the end user. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I'm getting hit almost daily with text messages that I know are not legit, right into the trash. But what are they, when they're sending those links? Do you have any idea? Are they betting that you're, or hoping you're on an Android device, or do those links also do harm on iPhones, you think?
A lot of times those links are not actually trying to deliver malware. They're trying to deliver like a phishing link. So,
into your login.
Right. So something where they can collect your credentials or collect some personal information about you or something like that. Or it may just be an ad. So like if you click the link, then, oh, look, you just clicked on this advertising link, and somebody now out there gets paid under an affiliate program. So But there is a subset of those messages that do sometimes have like a 0-click vulnerability bug that they're exploiting. And those are fairly rare. They typically happen with targeted individuals. So like if you're a journalism and a journalist, I should say,
Sure.
if you are a journalist and you are really critical of some oppressive regime somewhere, and you get a weird text message, you could very well be infected because of that, just by receiving that message. And that's because these vulnerabilities exist. It's really impossible to ever get rid of all such vulnerabilities in any system. And so they exist on iOS. You can get infected, but when you do, there's nothing that you can do to detect it or to remove it other than just, wipe your device clean and go back to factory settings and
on the iPhone.
Yeah.
Do you remember a few years ago, maybe several years ago now, I have no idea, time in the pandemic is lost on me, but there was some text, a string of text that if you sent to an iPhone user, it would do something to the iPhone. And I can't remember exactly the details of it, but I remember it went through my kids' high school. Like I heard
like
about it from them. Yeah. And when they first told me about it, I was like, really? I don't know if I believe that. It was real.
Yeah.
It was
real.
real.
Yeah. There have been several of those. And what they do is they usually crash the phone or the app, depending on, what the bug is. But yeah, the particularly nasty ones that I have seen, if you receive it, as soon as it's displayed on the screen, so like if you open your messages app, then the whole phone crashes. And then when you start it back up again, then if it tries to display that message again, you can get into a whole crashing loop. Like if it's showing in a notification that then loads again when you reboot.
Yeah.
There have been cases where people have gotten locked into these reboot cycles and basically couldn't do anything. Had to, I think, restore their phones.
Yeah.
Just because of a string of characters in a text message.
Fun and games.
Fun and games for kids sitting around watching their classmates' phones crash during class. I can see there's some fun there, probably.
Yeah.
Well, hey, this has been fantastic, Thomas. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. I really appreciate it. Thanks for everyone who attended. Thanks for the questions. And we're going to have this on our website.
Back, man.
Yeah. We're going to have this on our website in a couple days. I don't think I mentioned today. I would normally mention the date. Today's Tuesday, April 6th. So that's the day today. And we'll have this posted soon. And Thomas, I really appreciate everything you've done for the community and the product at Malwarebytes. We use it. We recommend it. If you're not running it, either ask your company what they're doing to protect you or help protect you. This is just one layer of many layers that you need these days for protection.
Yep.
And if you have a personal computer, go download it and just run it and see if it finds anything and have it available when you need to run it manually. Certainly it won't hurt anything to do that. Okay, we'll see you in a couple of weeks. Chad, thanks again, Thomas. Have a great day.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Ciao.
Bye.